दैत्यानां च वधोद्यमम् एतत् कंसाय भगवान् चशंसाभ्येत्य नारदः भूमेर्भाराय मानानां दैत्यानां च वधोद्यमम् एतत् कंसाय भगवान् चशंसाभ्येत्य नारदः भूमेर्भाराय मानानां दैत्यानां च वधोद्यमम्. Etat, all these words about the Yadu family and Vrishni family Kamsaya onto King Kamsa, Bhagavan, the most powerful representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shashamsa informed Kamsa, who was in doubt, Abhyetya, after approaching him, Naradaha, the great sage Narada, Bhumehe, on the surface of the earth, Bharayamananam, of those who are a burden, Daityanam cha, and of the demons, Vada Udyamam, the endeavor to kill. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaicharan Arvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Once the great saint Narada approached Kamsa and informed him of how the demoniac persons who were a great burden on the earth were going to be killed. Thus, Kamsa was placed into great fear and doubt. Can you repeat the translation? Once, the great saint Narada approached Kamsa and informed him of how the demoniac persons who were a great burden on the earth were going to be killed. Thus, Kamsa was placed into great fear and doubt. Purport. It has already been discussed that Mother Earth implored Lord Brahma to give her relief from the distress created by the burdensome demons, and that Lord Brahma informed her that Lord Krishna himself was going to appear. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 4.8, Paritranaaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Whenever there is a burden created by the demons, and whenever the innocent devotees are distressed by demoniac rulers, the Lord appears in due course of time to kill the demons with the assistance of his real representatives. who are technically called demigods. In the Upanishads, it is stated that the demigods are different parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As it is the duty of the parts of the body to serve the whole, it is the duty of Krishna's devotees to serve Krishna as he wants. Krishna's business is to kill the demons, and therefore this should be a devotee's business also. Because the people of Kali Yuga are fallen, however, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of kindness for them, did not bring any weapon to kill them. Rather, by spreading Krishna consciousness, love of Krishna, he wanted to kill their nefarious demoniac activities. This is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Unless the demoniac activities on the surface of the world are diminished or vanquished, no one can be happy. The program for the conditioned soul is fully described in Bhagavad Gita, and one simply has to follow these instructions to become happy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore prescribed Hare Nama Iva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva Gatiranyatha. Let people chant the Hare Krishna mantra constantly. Then their demoniac tendencies will be killed and they will become first class devotees, happy in this life and in the next. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport and translation to Canto 10, Chapter 1, Text 64 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namavom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhagavan Narada Abhyetya Kamsaya. Narada Muni being referred here as Bhagavan, the most powerful representative of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes the devotees of the Lord are also called Bhagavan. Bhagavan Narada, Bhagavan Shiva. So sometimes they referred because they represent some of the opulences of the Supreme Lord. Blessed by the Lord onto them to fulfill the purpose of the Lord. These most powerful, pure representatives of the Supreme Lord are also sometimes called as the good sons of God. Because everybody, every one of us, every living entity are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. We are all children of the Supreme Lord. But these representatives of the Supreme Lord, the pure devotees of the Lord, they are called as the good sons of God because they are very obedient to the established orders of God. They don't disobey. They don't create havoc in the Lord's kingdom, Lord's ruling, Lord's governance, Lord's program, Lord's plan. They don't create havoc. They don't create disturbance. But the other sons, meaning the other children, they don't comply with the Lord's plan. They have their own independent plans, how they want to live in their life. But the pure devotees of the Lord, they live exactly according to the plan of the Lord. That is the difference. So, Narada is a perfect example of an ideal representative of the Supreme Lord, and Kamsa is an ideal example of non-representative or a disobedient son of God. The most obedient son of God, Narada, and the most disobedient son of God, Kamsa. Both the examples are there in the same verse. So, Shukadeva Goswami addresses Narada as Bhagavan Narada. So, Bhagavan Narada Abhyetya means he approached Kamsa. Once, the great saint Narada approached Kamsa. When was this time? This was the time when, as we discussed earlier, in the earlier verses, when Vasudeva offered all his children onto the hands of Kamsa, so that Kamsa can do what he wants to do with his children, and Kamsa can be free from fear. And Kamsa decided to kill. But Vasudeva, very truthfully, with a lot of courage, although bearing a lot of pain in his heart, he would hand over all the children. And the previous verses discussed that he handed over the first child. He had 8 children. Vasudeva had 8 children. And on the delivery of the first child by Mother Devaki, he handed over this first child, Kirtiman, onto the hands of Kamsa. Then Kamsa was surprised that Vasudeva could keep up a word of giving his just newborn child onto the hands of Kamsa. It means death for this newborn child. And a shock to the parents. Just now the child is born. It's a location of celebration. And now they have to do Antyeshta Karma. They have to do not birth ceremony, they have to do death ceremony. And that was also not possible. Neither Vasudeva and Devaki could celebrate birth ceremony of their child, nor they could conduct death because they were imprisoned, they were jailed. Imagine their plight and condition. How horrible it would have been. So difficult for the parents to take. Not once, twice. 8 times it happened. Although the 7th and 8th scenario was different, but 8 times it happened. Vasudeva is the symbol of highest tolerance and sobriety. So, Kamsa was surprised that Vasudeva was true to his word. But he did know that Vasudeva was very truthful and very trustworthy and very strict in following the religious principles. As earlier one of the verses described very nicely about the character of Vasudeva. What is painful for saintly persons who strictly adhere to the truth? That means, for the sake of following dharma or the path of truthfulness or to keep up their word, a saintly person can undergo any amount of pain. And Kamsa knew very well Vasudeva was to this stature and expectation. Jai Krishna Balaram Gonitai Prabhupada ki jai. So, Kamsa apparently being very confident of being killed only by the 8th son, he thought, and also being impressed and influenced by the character and truthfulness of Vasudeva for the time being. He handed over the firstborn child. He said, Vasudeva, there is no danger from your firstborn child, so you can please take it back. But Vasudeva had his own doubts about Kamsa because those who are not devotees, they're not steady in their character, in their behavior, in their dealing. You cannot put faith upon a non-devotee's character or words. They don't have any respect for their own word, commitment for their own word. So therefore devotees, they don't believe them. Anyway, Vasudeva brought back the child. Soon after this, that's what is being discussed today. Soon after Vasudeva came back to his palace, Narada Muni approached. Bhagavan Narada Abhyetya Kamsa. He approached Kamsa and Shashamsa. He informed Kamsa what? Bhumer Bharayamananam. That how Bhumi, the earth, is being filled with many demoniac persons who were a great burden to Mother Earth, and they were the Daityas, the non-devotees, the demoniac persons who are against the principles of God consciousness, who are disobedient to the instructions of the Lord and direction of the Lord and the Lord's plan, who have no plan to execute and follow the plan of the Lord. They have their own plans to be happy. So, Bhumer Bharayananam Mananam. The burden of the earth was because of the Daityas. And so, Vada Udyamam. There's a plan to kill all these demonic persons on the surface of the earth who are causing great burden to Mother Earth. Thus, the word Shasamsa again can be understood to say, thus Kamsa was put into great fear and doubt. That he may be killed by any child. So Narada Muni triggered this fear in him. Why he triggered this fear in him and doubt in him, that will be explained by Shukadeva Goswami in the upcoming verses. So Kamsa became extremely fearful of the impending death. Very fearful. This is a typical nature of a person in bodily concept of life. Those who are in bodily concept of life fear death and associated problems with this body and problems connected with material life. They are very much disturbed, very much affected. But the first instruction in Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna is that you are not the body, you are a spirit soul. But persons who are demoniac have no such understanding or sense. Nor do they bother or care to know about these things. They simply want to live in an illusory state of bodily consciousness and enjoy life to the maximum. Apparently enjoy life to the maximum. But Krishna says otherwise in the Bhagavad Gita, you are not this body, you are a spirit soul. And a learned person will not lament for the change of body. And the demoniac person laments for the loss of body, change of body. There's a demonic person and there's a sober person called the Dhira. Dhira and Adhira. Kamsa is a typical example of Adhira. A person who is not sober. A person who is sober, he does not lament the loss of body, the change of body, because he knows he is not this body, is a spirit soul. And loss of body or change of body is nothing but what is called as death, or death is change of body. Why become so much afraid of change of body? Because Krishna also goes on to say, Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmad apariharyerte na tvam shochitum arhasi. Krishna says, for one who has taken birth, death is certain. And for one who dies, birth is certain. So that means one who dies, again, birth is a necessary possibility. Then why become so much afraid of death? Why become so much afraid of death? You're anyway going to take birth. And death is anyway unavoidable, as though only Kamsa had to face death in the entire creation and nobody died. Death is happening every moment. Every living entity is dying at different points of time. When his time comes, which is a calculated time, allotted time for him in that particular body, decided by higher authorities. And where he will move, also the higher authorities, who are representatives of the Supreme Lord, they have decided where this jiva will go in his next life. Then why become so much afraid? No, because they don't want to change the body. Because they don't know what is the next body. The demonic persons, they do not know the signs of change of body. And what body they are going to get, they have no idea. Therefore, they are very much afraid. Therefore, they don't want to give up the present body, present status. They don't want to give up. Because the next status is not known. At least I am aware what's going on now. So they want to secure their present condition. That also they think they can secure. That is also not in their hand. But one should think, if death is unavoidable, then why become afraid? Why lament? If death is unavoidable, why lament? Fear of death is good. We'll come to that point. But the demon's understanding of fear of death is different. So death is unavoidable, so we should not lament. Rather, one should know birth is certain, death is certain, so we don't have to lament. Rather, we should think of preparing for death. Although the demons are very concerned about death of their present body and concerned about what next, they don't know. Therefore, they're very afraid, as discussed. But they don't have any compassion for the soul. You see? They have no concern for the soul, eternal soul. The real cause of lamentation is the future of the soul, destiny of the soul. That they're not concerned. They're more concerned about death than being concerned about the soul's welfare. The soul is rotating in this cycle of birth and death eternally since time immemorial. Time immemorial means you can't trace out the history of time when this soul is trapped in the cycle of birth and death. How many thousands and lakhs of births? Not even thousands and lakhs of births. Many creations have passed, and still the soul is continuously caught up in the cycle of birth and death, without liberation from the cycle of birth and death of this material body. So they are not concerned. But Krishna gives a very easy solution. Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, verse 5, Krishna says, Anta kalecha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram. At the time of giving up this body, smaran muktva kalevaram. Kalevaram means this body, muktva means giving up, getting freed from. So muktva kalevaram, while giving up this body, smaran. Mam eva smaran. Mam eva smaran. If one exclusively thinks of me, then he will become liberated. He will attain my nature. Krishna is saying he will attain my nature. That means he'll come back to me. Yati nasti atra samshayaha. And there is no doubt about this. Ya prayati samad bhavam. He attains my nature, my planet, where there is no more birth and death. One becomes freed from birth and death. But the demons have no information. The non-devotees have no information of this secure position offered by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. They have no information. Therefore, they are very afraid of death. But the devotees are not afraid of death because they know after they quit this body, Krishna has given a word that you will come back to me. eternally to live with me in spiritual world. So they have no fear of death. And also we can see Kamsa was placed in great fear and doubt. That means we can deduce that those who are not devotees of the Lord, they are very much affected by the pains and pleasures of the body. Very much affected. But one who knows I am not the body, he has nothing to do with pains and pleasures of this particular body. This is called transcendental state or Brahma Bhuta state. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shouchati na kangshati. Krishna says, when you come to the transcendental state of Brahman or spirit, spiritual platform, then there's no question of lamentation and no question of hankering. Material lamentation, material hankering. The sum and substance of material life is material lamentation and material hankering. First hankering, then lamentation. You hanker for so many material things, so many material aspirations. You hanker. I want this, I want that. It would have been nice if I would have achieved this, if I have got this, if my desire would have been fulfilled. Lot of hankerings, planning, desires, aspirations. And either one is able to fulfill it in course of time, or not able to fulfill it, or having fulfilled it and lost it, because things are temporary in this world. Ashashvatam, Krishna says. Therefore, lamentation. There is a necessary need for lamentation in the material platform or the bodily concept of life. And one cannot avoid lamentation being in the bodily concept of life. There's no possibility. That is the nature of bodily consciousness or material life. It's a characteristic feature of material life is material hankering and material lamentation. And characteristic feature of spiritual life is free from lamentation and hankering. Hankering and lamentation thereof. Therefore, the devotee becomes joyful. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma, not Dukkhatma. Prasanna Atma, he becomes joyful, joyfully situated. He has no cares in this world. He does not care for anything in this world because it has nothing to do with this world. When I have nothing to do with my body and this body is connected with this world, what I have got to do with this world? I have nothing to do with this body and therefore nothing to do with this world. So many interactions are happening in this world. So many things are happening in this world. The devotee has no concern about what is going on in this world because I'm not the body. You become completely detached from all the happenings and activities of this material world. Therefore, you become peaceful and joyful. This is the secret of being joyful. Even in this material world, not in Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is Vigatakunta Asmaditi Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is free from all anxiety. Therefore, you are joyful. But even in this world, you can live in Vaikuntha consciousness. But the very simple principle, the very first principle which Krishna has taught in Bhagavad Gita, very first lesson. Can you imagine? The very first lesson, elementary lesson, if we can pass and accept and practice it, you become joyful. You become liberated actually. You can imagine the level of Krishna's instruction, Krishna's elementary instruction, if you follow itself, you will become liberated. Not liberated, you will become joyful. Transcendently joyful, not materially happy. Transcendently joyful you become. LKG lesson of Krishna, if you can pass only, you will become transcendently situated and joyful. Then the advanced lesson of Krishna, if you can practice, which is Man Mana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyaja Mam Namaskuru. What is the position of the devotee? Therefore, even a person who is free from lamentation and hankering becomes liberated. So what is the position of a devotee? Krishna says, Mad Bhaktim Labate Param. After the liberated state of a living entity, one begins devotional service or pure devotional service unto me. So therefore, a devotee is in a super excellent status or platform or dimension or consciousness, untouched by anything material. But a non-devotee, a demonic person means bodily concept of life, is he cannot enjoy this freedom and this joy. So for devotees, because they are transcendently situated, they have no fear of death. In fact, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Chaitanya's teachings, a devotee does not aspire for liberation. In fact, a devotee goes a step further. He prays to the Lord to take birth again and again in this world and continue rendering service unto him. Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatat bhakti rahituki tvai. A devotee has no plans for liberation from this material body and even material world. He does not mind taking birth again and again, thousands and lakhs of times, and creation after creation. We are trapped in this world, as we discussed, for millions of lives, stuck up in this body. But a devotee also does not mind getting stuck in this body if he is able to get an opportunity to render devotional service to Krishna life after life. You can just imagine. So that he can be amidst the conditioned souls and preach to them Krishna consciousness, inspire them in Krishna consciousness. Even Prahlad Maharaj has prayed to Lord Narasimhadev, Shoche tato vimukha chetase indriyartha maya sukhaya baram udvahato vimudha. These foolish persons in this world who are actually carrying a burden upon their heads. What burden? Maya sukhaya bharam. Bharam means burden. What kind of burden? Maya bhara, the burden of Maya. Interestingly, Maya sukha. Prahlad Maharaj says, sukha, this material happiness, is actually a burden. Maya sukhaya bharam. Very interesting to note. Prahlad Maharaj is saying, this material happiness is a burden upon the living entity, because that is the trap. That is discussed in Bhagavatam in detail in the later cantos. In the earlier canto it was discussed. What is the trap of material happiness? For every sense there's a trap. Just like the fish is trapped by a bait, and the fish thinks, oh, I got a nice bait, nice food. And then he'll try to get that food, it gets hooked on to the trap of the fisherman and loses its life. Like that, for every sense, there's a trap of sense gratification. The trap is sukha, material happiness, called sense gratification. That is the trap. So we fall for sense gratification, and therefore we lose our spiritual identity, our spiritual life. We lose our spiritual identity. See, by the trap of sense gratification, you're not dying, right? But your spiritual life is dying. Your spiritual identity is getting lost, diminished by every trap of sense gratification, which we become victim to. So, Prahlad Maharaj says that I wanted to help all these conditioned souls who are poor souls, who are suffering in this world, thinking that they're happy while trapped by so many things in this world and being imprisoned in this body. I want to save them, my Lord, like that. So he's not concerned about liberation. He is not afraid of death. This is the position of a devotee. He is not concerned about his personal security, personal safety. That is left up to the Lord. he is fully convinced. He is not the body and is fully protected and cared for by the Lord. Why should I think and meditate so much upon my bodily necessities, eh, bodily demands, bodily security? Why should I worry so much about these things? And why should I bother my Lord about these things? It's a botheration to my Lord for asking these things to my Lord. I should be serving my Lord. So the devotee is in this platform to serve the Lord out of bodily concept, bodily consciousness. Whatever the condition of the body and the mind may be, he is completely detached. So, therefore, a devotee, Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita as he is carefree. A devotee is carefree. He is independent, meaning he is not dependent on the material course of activities. That also Krishna says. He is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities. He is not dependent on these things. He is dependent on the Lord. That's all. He is unaffected by material things. This does not mean he is careless or irresponsible to execute his daily duties. No. It means he is detached from bodily consciousness, but at the same time he executes all his duties with his body and mind, material body and mind, as it demands, his duty demands in the service of the Lord. So, all through the Gita, Krishna invites us and assures us a secure, safe position back to Godhead. All through the Gita, Krishna has come down for that purpose, to invite us to his kingdom, because we are his children. And Krishna also is not so happy that we are suffering so much and we are facing the cycle of birth and death. So Krishna is inviting us how to get out of this cycle of birth and death. We only need to prepare for the upcoming death, the immediate death, impending death. That's our only business in human life. And the entire Vedic life, Vedic civilization is designed and arranged to achieve this purpose. Therefore, apparently that there might not have been great material leaps and advancements, because their focus was different. It was for a very serious business of conquering death, not to be conquered by death and become victimized by death, victimized by bodily concept. That's a defeat. Parabhavastava bodha jata yavanna jignasata yata atma tattvam. It is considered a great defeat for a living entity if he is conquered by death. And it is considered a great success for the living entity if he is conquered over death. Today our understanding of success and failure is completely different. Both success and failure is on the platform of defeat. Can you imagine? And we are thinking something is successful, something is failure. Both working on the platform of failure. What an illusion. So, the urgency is, the need is, human life is very rarely obtained, and one must act immediately without delay to conquer death, to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death, to overcome the fear of death. Only human life provides an opportunity. And if you miss this, lakhs of life you may have to pay for to get the opportunity once again. The price you have to pay is many millions of lives. The price you have to pay. Do we want to pay that? A sober person has to think. Am I willing to pay that much price of millions of my lives? I have to stake in the form of birds, beasts, reptiles. Have to cross through all the lives to come to human life, which only provides the opportunity for attaining liberation. But demons are very careless. They're very careless about this wonderful opportunity, fortunate opportunity which has come. They're very careless, negligent. They don't care for these instructions of the Vedas. So, although the demons also don't want death, devotees also, in one sense. Although the devotees don't want death, they don't know how to avoid death, how to conquer death. They try in their own way, according to their own intelligence, material intelligence. So many ways they try to avoid death, to overcome death, to cover up the fear of death. So they make a very elaborate civilization arrangement in this world to enjoy sense gratification, to forget the fear of death. So all these arrangements of happiness, what we see in this world, all this material advancement, what we see in this world, is nothing but a cover up for the fear of death. It is a fact. It is a fact. But the fact remains, he cannot cover up death. As sure as death. They may be ignorantly satisfied to achieve some success in this regard in terms of postponing death. Again, they think so. Just like life expectation or expectancy, they say they have improved. But Prabhupada says one place, maybe few months, few years. But death is sure. Okay, the average life of earlier times maybe, 50s or something. Now it has become 60s, they're saying. Fine. What difference it makes 5-10 years? What big material difference it makes in your life? Tell me. So one should think. So death is sure, whether few months or few years. Where will they go after death is the big question, which they don't want to answer because they're afraid of death and after death. They don't want to answer that. They don't want to think of future. All materialistic people like Kamsa, they don't want to talk about future. They say you are pessimistic, you are a sadist. You are pessimistic, you are not optimistic about life. That's not true. Because of being optimistic, the devotees, they think about next life. If you're intelligent, you will think about next life. What you're going to become. If you're foolish, then you will not think about next life. To plan for future is a sign of intelligence. To plan for future is a sign of intelligence. But Asuras, because of fear of death and they don't know that next destination, they have come up with a philosophy that this life is all in all, at the end of everything, therefore enjoy it to the maximum. This is the philosophy they come up with and they're convinced about it. And they propagate this philosophy. And they've created a whole civilization around this idea. Enjoy the life to the maximum. After this life, there is nothing which exists. Nothing exists. Everything is finished. So, in this way, they're misleading all the people in this world, because that is not the fact. You may dream and imagine so many things. The laws don't work like that. They don't go by your belief systems. Just like government law is there, police law is there, traffic law is there. They don't go by your belief systems. You break the law, you pay for it. That's all. So like that, there are universal laws governing this universe. It is not depending upon your belief systems. There's no next life. This is the end of everything. This body is the end of everything. These are foolish conclusions. So, therefore, the goal of life is to go back to Godhead. And this material world, in fact, is created for this purpose and business. How to prepare oneself to go back to Godhead, to the spiritual world. This is the purpose of this material creation. And the demons work exactly against this purpose, sadly. And time and again, they are put into suffering, unfortunately, because of their um, wrong understanding and conviction. Therefore, the devotees of the Lord are very concerned and they want to preach and save the human society. So, anyway, so here we see Kamsa was placed into great fear and doubt after receiving information from Narad Muni. So, we will see what Kamsa will decide after getting this news from Narad Muni. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.